In this video, I'm going to show you how to decorate this elephant baby shower cake. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. If you want to skip the intro and get right into the video, there are chapters linked below. So in today's video, I am showing you how to decorate this adorable elephant baby shower cake. This is for one of my friends who is having a baby. And I'm starting with my cakes already baked, filled, and iced in American buttercream icing. And I refrigerate all of my cakes. My refrigerator's over there. That's why I always point. All of my cakes go in the refrigerator once they are iced. That way when I work on them, I don't mess them up. I have full tutorials showing you how I bake, fill, ice cakes, stack cakes. All of the detailed tutorials will be linked in the description along with all of the tools that I use in this video. So let's get into the video. I'm saying video a lot, but let's get into the video. To start, I have a piece of non-skid pad underneath my cutting board so it doesn't slide around. I have an X-Acto knife with a wet paper towel that I can keep wiping the blade on, a Dresden tool, a needle tool, and a little bit of water. And I rolled out some gray fondant, pretty thick. There is Tylose powder added into all of my fondant so it holds its shape. So I printed out the elephant the size that I wanted it to be, and I am using my Dresden tool to trace the outline of the elephant. Once I get the outline, then I'm going to go in and do the inside details as well. Peel it back, make sure the line's transferred, and then I'm going to take my Dresden tool and just deepen the lines that I made. Now, I'm going to do a shallow cut. If I cut all the way down to start, do you see how it messes up the fondant? So I just stick the tip of the blade into the fondant just to create a little line. I'm kind of sawing up and down a little bit. This way I'm creating a line that my knife can follow so I don't mess up the fondant when I cut the whole thing out. Now I want to deepen the impression in the ears and the belly. So I'm just using tools. I have these ball tools, which I love. I will find them and link them below. And I'm just pressing the fondant down to create like a little depth, a little area that I could put the other fondant details in. And you see how I have to use different tools, different sides of the tools to get into the corners, so just trying to press it down as best as I can. I have this green fondant and it does have Tylose powder mixed into it, and I want to make the ears and the belly. So again, I just place the picture on top and do my trace, cut, and smooth method. Carefully tracing all the pieces onto the fondant and then use my knife to cut it out. And then, like always, you're not going to see it every time I do it, but I smooth my cuts. Look, I'm placing the pieces into those little cavities that I created. Get a little bit of water on the back and stick it down. Now, when I stuck this down, it wasn't all the way to the top, so I'm lifting it up and like stretching it a little bit just so it fills the cavity. And then I can use my tools to press it down even deeper in there and just make sure it's flush with the piece. Now I want to deepen some of the lines. And now I'm going to cut this out. So getting in these little areas is kind of a pain in the butt. So do you see how I'm moving the knife? Like I'm pulling the fondant away from it. I'm turning it. I'm just trying to make sure that I am not messing up the elephant as I cut this out. See, this area is small, so I'd have to do it in like little sections. And I do not want to break that tail. So you just have to be careful when you do this. And once it's all done, it looks jagged. It looks not good. So I do my smoothing method. I take my fingers, I take my tools. I'm running my fingers over the edge from the back, and then I flip it over and do the same thing from the front. If you take the time to smooth your cuts, your pieces are going to look so much better. and I'm just deepening more of the detail. So as I work with it, it looked like it lost a little bit of the detail. Now I want to do the little toes, the little pitty toes. So I'm just tracing these again onto the purple fondant. And the little cheeks as well. Now when I cut these out, I want to cut it into one piece because having a bunch of those little toes would be so annoying. So do you see I'm not going all the way down to the bottom piece? So when I take it off, it's just like a little strip of toenails. And I know that sounds gross, but look how much easier it is to handle when I do it that way. And I want to do the eyes and the eyebrows, so I have some black fondant and just repeating the process of tracing it, cutting it out, and smoothing my cuts. Now, getting a little bit of water on the back and placing it down onto the piece. Now I'm making the little pieces the eye, so I have a really tiny piping tip that I just cut white pieces out. Now, you gotta color the pieces. It just looks so much better. So this black can be pretty intense, so I just dip the paintbrush in it. And look, I'm just picking up the black off of that piece of paper. It's best to start with a little bit and then add more as you go because this really transfers. So look, that transferred a little too much. I'm wiping it with my finger, right? Just a little bit goes a long way with this dust. And it just brings the piece to life. It just makes it look so much better when you color it in. So I like to use a fine paintbrush. This has a really tiny tip on it and just going around and getting into all those little details. And you don't have to be perfect with it. You see, I'm just kind of coloring it in. And then I flipped it over too. I got a little bit on the back. I didn't want the back to be too plain. That doesn't look great, but whatever. And now I'm putting the skewers in. I twist it in there. You screw it in there. Do not push it in. So I'm starting in the very, very center. And then I flip it over and then just make sure it's not popping out the front or the back. And I do 2 skewers. That way it won't twist when it's in the cake. And set that aside. Now I am making the stripes. So I have this little roller, whoops, it's getting a little stuck, kind of annoying there. But I rolled out fondant really thin and I have this texture roller. I'll try to find it. I have this ribbon cutter and I just want to cut a bunch of stripes that I'm going to put on the bottom tier. Once I cut stripes out, I'm going to smooth my cuts. I'm not going to show you every time, but look, I'm smoothing it just so the edges aren't jagged, and I'm doing different sizes. So I'm, readjusting the width of the ribbons and just cutting it out of all the colors. Now I have this Rollcom Super Gold. Add a little bit of the powder to the cup, add a little bit of lemon extract, and then just paint some of the stripes silver. I'm painting all the gray stripes silver. Just, I don't know, just because I felt like doing it that way. And using my rulers to straighten the strips. Now I have my cake. It's just out of the refrigerator. I am marking the front of the cake, take my paper towel, a wet paper towel, and get rid of that icing on the cake and clean the cake board. I have some piping gel, and I'm going to paint the sides of the cake all the way from the top to the bottom, then dip the paintbrush into some water to thin out the piping gel. And just wipe the water off of the cake board again. I want to find the back of the cake and start in the back. So I'm cutting the bottoms off of all of these strips so I have a flat bottom, and then just put it right up the side of the cake. I have these angled scissors. I think they're for carpets, but I love those scissors. So I just line the strip up the cake, try to make sure it's straight, and then snip the top off. Super easy. And I am just putting all the colors in there. And once I have all the colors on, I'm going to start all over again and just do that around the entire cake. And in the back, I had to make that purple one a little wider just to fill that void. That's why it's at the back of the cake. Use my fondant smoother to press it against the cake and put that back in the fridge. Now I want to make the word baby. So I rolled out all the fondant in a bunch of different colors, pretty thick. It's like a 1/2 inch thick. And again, I printed out this word baby, the size that I want it to be. And do you see how I'm tracing a little bit on the outside of those letters, just because I want the letters to be a little thicker than they are. So each letter is going to go on a different color. And then I'm doing the same technique. Now, when I cut any letters out or numbers out, I always cut the center pieces first. I'm doing a shallow cut here again because it's a thicker piece of fondant, and then stick the tip all the way down to the cake board and cut the piece out. You want to cut the center pieces first before you cut everything out of the rest of the fondant. It's just so much easier to do it that way. And then I'm going to take my tools, take my fingers, and smooth all the cuts, just because everything is pretty jagged once you do it once you cut everything out of the fondant. And then once I have the center pieces done and smooth, I'm going to do the shallow cut to cut the letter out, and then stick the knife all the way down again to the board and cut the entire thing out. Flip it over, smooth the cuts from the back, and then from the front. So I'm going to do that for all of the letters. And just to reiterate, all of this fondant does have the Tylose powder mixed into it, so these letters are going to hold its shape. If you don't have if you don't have Tylose mixed into your fondant, the fondant is going to be too soft and it's going to fall apart. So highly recommend that you use it. I will link the Tylose and this baby word and the elephant. Well, everything will be listed in the description. Realign it on top of there to make sure they're in the right spot, and let's set that aside. Now I want to stack my cake. So I have my little ruler here, and then I put my straw on top, measure the straw, cut off the marker, and put them in the cake. Get a little bit of buttercream down, make sure my hands are clean, and then I'm going to stack the rest of the cake. I have a full stacking tutorial which shows this entire process, and I will link that in the description below. Making sure that it's level always. Dowel the cake. And I always want to fill that little space, the little hole, with some buttercream. Now, this icing is solid. It must be solid when I do this. I'm putting a very thin layer of buttercream icing around this entire middle tier, from the bottom all the way up to the top. Now I have a piece of plastic wrap, food safe plastic. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm using my left hand. You can't see, I'm using my left hand to turn the turntable, and I'm just slowly lifting that piece of plastic all the way up just to get a little bit of texture onto this cake. Use my spatula to remove the excess on the top, and I just want to refine it, so I'm doing it again with another piece. I do have a video showing how I do this technique, and I will link it in the description. And there you go, super easy way to get a nice little texture on your buttercream cake. I'm going to make the borders for the top tier. I rolled out that fondant really long, using my ribbon cutter to cut out the ribbons, smooth my cuts, get some piping gel around the perimeter of the bottom of the top tier, and just placing the ribbon on there where it meets in the back, cut it with a knife and press the seam together. And I always use my palette knife just to press it down, just so it's meeting the board, and just so I can make sure that the ribbon is even. Now I want to stick the lettering on here. I always start with the center letters to make sure that it's center, and then stick the other letters on either side. So I'm going to get a little bit of icing on the back and just stick that against there. So I'm having the bottom stick out a little bit. I'm just sticking the top part of the letter to the cake. And then I can adjust it as needed. Now I'm going to make a bunch of polka dots. So I have these piping tips, and I have these circle cutters, and I rolled out the fondant and the colors that I'm using really thin, and I'm just cutting a bunch of different sizes of these polka dots in a bunch of different colors and setting them aside on that little cutting board. Now I want to cut some of these so they have a straight edge. I'm not cutting them all exactly in half. Some of them I'm doing a little bit less than half, you see, but I have a bunch of ones in half. So this is how I like to put polka dots on cakes. I start with the flat part on the bottom, and I just want to randomly put them on here. So I'm doing different colors, different sizes. Do you see when I get to the top? I have a flat one at the top. And then I have flat ones at the bottom. So I'm just kind of randomly sticking this on here, trying to make sure that the colors don't touch, like same colors don't touch. And pretty, there's a polka dot top tier. I want to wrap the ribbon around the cake board. Use the lid of the glue stick to press the foil against the board. Get some glue around the perimeter, and there is glue on the other side of that ribbon. and then stick it together. And now I want to put the topper on, getting a little bit of piping gel underneath and sliding the little elephant down onto the top. And there is the cake. So there you go. How adorable is this little elephant baby shower cake? And I like this because it's a simple-ish design with the stripes and the polka dots. And it ends up looking so cute. This cake is 4-inch. The middle tier is a 3-layer 6-inch and the bottom tier is an 8-inch cake. I do have a video talking about how I work with different heights of tiers to get different sizes, and I will link that in the description. But this cake will feed between 45 to 50 people, and I did not charge for it because it's for my friend's baby shower. However, if I did have to charge for this cake, it would be in the range, it would be about $500. So I think that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. And you can keep in touch on social media and check out my website. It's listed in the description below as well. And if you want to stick around, you can watch this video next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Please like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's cake. It's adorable. Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.